The crows sit on the edge of the field, their beady black eyes watching. They never approach the Scarecrow hung in the center of the field. Maybe they know something we don't. Tonight's story is called My Neighbor's Scarecrow is Starting to Scare Me, written by Blair Daniels. Mommy? Mommy? For the third time this week, Ava's piercing cries came from down the hall. I leapt out of bed and stumbled to her room. Ava? Ava, are you okay? The Scarecrow was looking in my window again, Mommy, she said through sobs. I sat down on my bed and wrapped my arms around her. Shh, it's okay, I said in my calm voice, rocking her back and forth. But inside, I was fuming. We live next to a small family farm. Years ago, when we moved in, it was just a farm stand by the road. Now it's grown into this kitschy weekend destination, complete with animals, a corn maze, and apple picking. Every Saturday, it's kids shrieking and screaming from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was, this year, they put this Scarecrow in their corn maze, and it's honestly completely inappropriate. It's not some cute fall decoration with hay for hair and a triangle nose. No, this thing looks like it came out of an 80s slasher film. A tattered plaid shirt, ragged blue jeans, hay sticking out where its hands and feet should be. And the face was pure nightmare fuel. A piece of burlap with angry eyes cut into the cloth. A grinning mouth that had been stitched shut with thick twine. And my little Ava's window faced the damned thing. She'd been having nightmares for weeks now. Nightmares that this thing was looking in her window, standing in our backyard, rustling through the corn. First thing tomorrow, I'm going over to Betsy Smithson and giving her a piece of my mind, I thought, as Ava cried into my shoulder. This is not okay. I've put up with all the noise, put up with the fact that my backyard smells like a porta potty at a baseball game when the wind blows just right. Put up with the traffic jams in front of my own driveway on weekend mornings. This is too far. At 7 a.m. sharp, I marched over there, even though I was dead tired from the wake-up with Ava. I wound my way through the little farmyard paths until I got to the old farmhouse. Despite the crazy amounts of money the farm must have been bringing in, the farmhouse didn't look like it was in great shape. White paint peeled off the corners, and the thick glass windows were clouded with dust. I knocked 3 times, as loud as possible, and a moment later heard footsteps inside. Oh, good morning, Emily. Betsy's sweet, smiling face poked out of the door. Despite the early hour, her blonde hair was perfectly combed and styled. Betsy, listen. I forced my voice to be polite. I need to ask you a favor. Of course, she said, nodding, her blue eyes bright. What can I do for you? My daughter, Ava, has been having terrible nightmares about the Scarecrow you have hanging up in the corn maze. Do you think you could take it down, maybe? Her expression darkened. Emily, she said with a soft chuckle. You know this farm's all I got. It's what pays our bills, puts food on the table. After Pete, she trailed off and coughed. Let's just say we'd be in poverty if not for the farm. Having 6 kids isn't cheap. I frowned. Yes, I know. That's why I haven't complained about the noise, the traffic, or the smell. But this Scarecrow, surely it's not some vital part of the farm. Couldn't you just take it down, at least for a little while? Her blue eyes bored into mine. I'm sorry, I can't do that." Before I could respond, the door clicked shut. I stood there on the porch, stunned. While Betsy's been a pain sometimes, I didn't really expect her to say no to such a modest request. I mean, surely the Scarecrow isn't some huge critical part of the farm. They just put it up this year, for Pete's sake. Pete. My anger melted a little. She has been through a lot. I lingered on the porch for a few seconds more, and then went home. When Ava got home from school, it was like the nightmare had never happened. She was her usual bouncy self, pulling out her paints and working on her homework. But around bedtime, my anxiety increased. "Ava, how would you like to sleep in Mommy's room tonight? And Mommy will sleep in your room?" She stared at me. "That's weird," she said finally. "Come on, it'll be fun." I was eventually able to persuade her, without any mention of the Scarecrow. She was out by 8, and I got settled in her unicorn bed, reading on my phone for a while. Around 10, I turned out the lights and went to sleep. Something woke me at 3 a.m. I rolled over in the tiny bed, trying to fall back asleep. I could see why Ava was afraid. It was a pretty grotesque sight out her window. The Scarecrow was scary enough in broad daylight, accompanied by the excited shrieks of children. But now, in the quiet of the night, under the full moon, it was absolutely horrifying. Silver moonlight outlined the body, stuffed to the brim with straw. The arms hung limply at its sides. The head leaned forward slightly, resting on its chest. The hollow eyes glared out into the darkness. The grin remained stitched with twine. All around it, the corn stalks swayed in the strong wind as if bowing down to their master. I shuddered. After 10 minutes, I still couldn't fall asleep. I finally got up and walked down the hallway. I checked on Ava. She was sound asleep. I went downstairs, ate a piece of cheese, flicked on the TV for a few minutes. Then I went back upstairs and settled into bed. I yawned, pulled the covers over myself, and froze. The Scarecrow had moved. Before, it had been facing the road. Now it was facing my window. Fear pounded through me. My heart thumped wildly in my chest. "Stop, there's nothing wrong. It's really windy out, see? See how the corn is moving like that?" A gust of wind must have hit the Scarecrow, turned it a little. I took a deep breath, then another. That's all that happened. I probably would have stayed up for hours if not for the fact that I was so tired from Ava's nightmare last night. My eyelids grew heavy, and despite the fear in the tiny bed, I fell asleep. That morning, I forgot all about the Scarecrow. I happily made Ava waffles before school, sprinkling mini chocolate chips into the batter. I packed her backpack and sent her off on the bus. Then I sat at the kitchen table, finishing my coffee before I had to leave for work. Wait. What is that? Something long and golden in the grass. I opened the door and walked out into the backyard. The Scarecrow stared down at me in the bright sunlight, the corn rustling in the wind. I slowly crouched down to inspect what lay in the grass. My heart dropped. It was a piece of straw. If you've ever walked off the trail on a hiking expedition, you know how scary and difficult it can be to find your way back. But what if, no matter which way you went, you could never leave? This story is called "This Afternoon I Went to the Park with My Son. Now We Can't Leave." Written by Blair Daniels. I went to the park this afternoon. I thought it was going to be a fun experience. I really did. But going out with an independent 3-year-old is never a fun experience. "Go off the path," he said. We went off the path, into the wet grass and mud. The mile-long trail surrounds a wide open field that extends forever. It's beautiful to look at, not so fun to actually walk in. "Come on, let's get back on the path," I said, gesturing. Of course, he turned the other direction and ran further into the field. "Hey, come back here, now!" I sprinted after him. My feet sank into the mud with a gross squelch. I could feel the water seeping into my boots, cold and damp. I finally caught up with him, panting. I grabbed him by the shoulder. "We have to go back on the path, okay?" "No!" I sighed and looked around. We were farther out than I thought. Green grass extended in every direction, gently sloping into hills and curves. A few trees spotted the landscape. The sky above was gray. Rain drizzled down, blurring the trail that looped around us. Well, shit. This was going to be a long, muddy, messy walk. "Come on," I said, pulling him by the arm. We walked for a few minutes. Then he abruptly stopped, bent over, and started taking off his left shoe. No. You have to keep those on." I bent down, grabbed the shoe, shook it out for rocks, and jammed it back on his foot. Sighing, I stood up. Huh? The trail looked farther away. No, it must be my imagination. I took his hand, and we trudged forward. He made it difficult. He kept turning around, looking back over his shoulder at something. I kept my focus, as we mothers are so good at doing. When everything's going to shit, we just stare straight ahead, plowing forward. I kept my eyes locked on the blurry red dot of our car that looked so far away. "What's that?" he finally asked me. "We're going to the car," I replied sternly, as if I could magically transport us there with my words. "Is that a person?" He twisted his whole body around, looking at something behind us. I kept my hand locked fast in his, trudging forward. My ears were freezing, my feet were wet. I could not lose focus. "We're going to the car," I repeated, through gritted teeth. "Is that a person? In the tree?" "Come on, we're going to the car." "What's he doing?" "We're going to the—" His little hand fell away from mine, a soft thud on the grass. "Oh, buddy, I'm sorry." He'd slipped in the grass and was sitting now, staring behind us. Perhaps I'd been too mean, pulling him forward like that. He was so preoccupied with whatever he was looking at that he wasn't looking where he was going. I gently pulled him back up. "I'm sorry. I just think we need to get to the car, now. It's cold, we forgot your hat, so your ears are going to hurt, and—" I looked up. My breath caught in my throat. There was a figure, hanging by a rope on the tree behind us, limply swaying in the wind. What the hell? Every muscle in my body froze. For a second, I was paralyzed, just staring. The figure hung limply, dark in the shadows of the branches, unmoving. It can't be real. Yeah, of course. How would a dead body just be hanging there, in daylight, for the world to see? There'd been a few joggers on the trail. Clearly, they would have seen it and called the cops. And in the drizzling rain at this distance, I couldn't see any details. It was most likely some stupid prank, or a belated Halloween decoration. "What's the person doing?" My son continued staring at the figure. Don't worry. It's just some stupid joke. I took his shoulders and turned him around, grabbed his hand, marched forward without looking back. The wind whipped towards us, spraying rain in our faces. I squinted, fighting through, my toes ice cold and numb. I forced my eyes on the parking lot, focused on that little red dot in the distance. But the dot grew no closer. We walked for 5 minutes, then 10, then 20. Every step we took, the path was still so far away. Finally, we stopped. I glanced around in every direction. We were still in the middle of the field. The tree was far behind us. I could barely make out the figure hanging from its branches, but the path was still as far as it ever was. How is that even possible? I glanced around hopelessly, trying to figure out which part of the path was the closest, which direction to go in. But it seemed like we were in the dead center of the field. "I want to go home," my son said, wrapping his arms around me. Fear panged in my chest. I knelt to his level and hugged him. "I know, I want to go home too. We just need to walk a little longer." We continued walking. When he got too tired, I carried him in my arms. We walked for a half hour, then an hour. The trail stayed out of reach. I finally collapsed into the wet grass, giving up all hope. Then I saw the jogger. He was in the distance, plodding along the path slowly, wearing a bright red windbreaker. I watched his path along the gravel trail. Then I screamed, "Help! Please help us!" He was far, but definitely not far enough away to hear someone screaming at the top of their lungs. Yet he didn't turn around, just kept jogging along the path that never seemed to get any closer. "Help!" I screamed. "We can't get out! Please, come help us!" He just kept going. It's getting dark now. We've been trapped here in the middle of the park for almost 6 hours. I'm scared and hungry. So is my son. We're huddled under a little cluster of trees trying to stay warm. I've tried calling every emergency line from my phone, but I only get static. I'm not even sure this post will go through. But I hope something happens soon, because I hear noises, horrible sounds. The wind coasts through the park, but in its wake I hear whispers and snarls among the rustling of the trees, as if the park is coming alive. And that jogger? I'm not so sure he's just some random person, because he's still here, running the loop around us for hours, never slowing down, never stopping for a break. And he's much closer than he was hours ago. I think he's gone off the path. I can't see him in the darkness, but I can hear him. Hear his ragged breaths. Hear his footsteps on the wet grass. Getting closer with every step. How would you react if you suspected your significant other of being unfaithful, and then you found another person's hair in the shower drain? This next story is called "I Think My Husband Is Cheating on Me," written by Blair Daniels. I knew it when I found the hair. While changing the bedsheets, I found a long black hair, curled up right next to my husband's pillow. There's no way it could be mine. I'm blonde. "Any idea who this is from?" I demanded, shoving the hair in his face. "What is that, a hair?" "I found it in our bed." He looked from me to the hair, then back again. "Are you saying you think I'm cheating on you?" "Of course that's what I'm saying. I wanted to shout. "There's another woman's hair in our bed." But I swallowed, stepped back, and took a deep breath instead. "Do you know whose hair this is?" "No idea. Maybe from Tanya when she visited?" I mean, to be fair, Greg's never given me any reason to think he's cheating. He's a computer nerd who spends most of his time on Reddit or playing D&D. He's attractive, but not an Adonis by any standard. I haven't noticed any missing time, and he doesn't seem overly protective of his phone. But the clues kept piling up. For one, I started finding the hairs everywhere. One on the kitchen counter, another in my home office, a few on our couch. When I emptied our Roomba, there were a dozen or more, all tangled up with the dust. One night I smelled perfume. Greg claimed he couldn't smell it. How could he not? It was really unique, sweet and floral, yet with a tangy undertone, almost sour. Smelling it made my stomach turn. Another night I went into the bathroom and saw something small and red on the tile, like a shard of plastic maybe that had broken off something. I bent down and picked it up, only to find that it looked like a fingernail, yellowish white on one side, red lacquer on the other. But it was so small, I really couldn't be sure. Little incidents like this kept happening every few weeks. A hair, a whiff of perfume. Every time I almost had a panic attack. Sometimes I'd confront Greg in a wild rage. Other times, I'd just innocently ask him what it was. It depended on my mood, how desperate I was feeling. He continued denying it, and I really truly started to believe him. I told myself that it was all in my head. I was being paranoid. My marriage was fine. But then I found the smoking gun. On Saturday, I was supposed to go out to dinner with a friend. But as soon as I got to the restaurant, I got a text from her saying she had to cancel. Disappointed, when I got home, I went straight up to the bathroom and started a nice hot shower going. I peeled off my clothes, waited for clouds of steam to pour out, and then threw back the shower curtain. There was something in the drain. I bent over to inspect it, and my blood ran cold. It was a clump of black hair. "How do you explain this?" I yelled, running out of the bathroom naked. I dropped the wet clump of hair on his chest. He stared at me, at a loss for words. What?" "Her hair was in the shower." "Whose hair?" he asked, picking the clump off his shirt and grimacing. "Don't you fucking gaslight me. Your girlfriend's hair." "Haley?" He looked into my eyes, and he really did seem honest in that moment. "I really don't know whose hair this is, but I'm not cheating on you." "How stupid do you think I am?" I growled, like a rabid animal. "There is another woman's hair in our shower." "Okay, you need to calm down." He threw the hair on the nightstand, stood up, and gently wrapped his hands around my shoulders. "I understand why you would think I'm cheating, but I'm not. I promise. She's in the closet, isn't she?" "What?" I looked down at the trail of water on the carpet, leading straight from the bathroom to the closet. "That's just from me. I just took a shower and went to the closet to get my clothes." I sidestepped him. "Haley," he said in a warning voice behind me, but I didn't listen. I ran across the room, grabbed the doors, and slid them back. It was empty. I pushed our shirts back, kicked the piles of laundry on the floor, even went on my tiptoes and checked the high shelf. Nothing. I told you I wasn't having an affair. "This doesn't prove anything," I wanted to yell. "So she's not here. it still doesn't explain the hair, the perfume, or any of the other fuckery going on in our house. But I forced myself to shut up, because no matter what I said, if he were having an affair, he wouldn't tell me. I'd have to find out on my own. The next day, I left for my mom's. I left before he woke up. With everything going on, I just couldn't face him. I needed space, time alone. I sent him a text after I got there, telling him I'd be home in 3 days. But I just missed him too much, so I came back after 2. I drove home in silence, my knuckles white on the steering wheel, my heart pounding in my chest. I pulled into the driveway near midnight. The house was dark, except for the dim night light we always left on in the bathroom. I quietly slid the key into the lock and opened the door. The house looked just like it did when I left. Dirty dishes piled up by the sink, and a clump of laundry sat in the corner. I walked over to the stairs, trying to be as quiet as possible. And then I heard it. Light, thumping footsteps, coming from right above me. My heart dropped. I ran up the stairs, taking them 2 at a time. No, no, no. I raced down the hallway, our door looming at the end. It can't be. It can't. I burst into the bedroom. The adrenaline rushed out of me as I realized it was empty. Well, Greg was there, in bed, asleep, or pretending to be. But the room was dark and silent, and everything looked as it should. Did I imagine the footsteps? No, there was no way. I scanned the room slowly, looking for anything out of place. My eyes caught on the closet. No. Sticking out from the slats was a lock of black hair. My blood ran cold. I took a step forward, my heart hammering in my chest. "Greg, I know you're not asleep," I said softly, not taking my eyes off the door. He didn't stir. "You're playing some sick kind of game, Greg, you know that?" I whispered, my eyes locked on the black hair. "Come out, now," I said, my voice shaking, "or you'll be sorry." A faint thumping sound in reply. I ran over to the closet doors, my hands locked on the handles. I sucked in a breath. "Haley?" Greg was slowly sitting up in bed, rubbing his eyes. "What are you doing back so early?" I turned to him. He looked terrible, like he hadn't slept in days. Eyes red and swollen, deep circles underneath. I let go of the doors and backed away. He reached for me, but I kept going until my feet hit the cold tile of the bathroom. I grabbed the door and shut it in his face, clicked the lock. The bathroom was dark, only lit by the nightlight. My panicked breaths echoed against the walls. I wrapped my arms around myself and began to sob. There's no way that could be my husband's mistress, because she was dead. The night I found the hair in the drain, I snapped. I stole Greg's phone and eventually found the secret stash of texts. A quick Google search found her address. I went over there at 4 a.m., raging with fury, and ended the only threat to my marriage. Then I went to my mom's house because I couldn't face him. Came back after 2 days because I missed him. But I never should have come back. A soft sound jolted me from my thoughts. A wet squelch. My head snapped to the bathtub. There was a dark shape behind the shower curtain, shifting slowly as more wet smacks echoed against the walls. I reached for the light switch. Bright light flooded the small room. I squinted, wiping the tears from my eyes, and then glanced at the bathtub. nothing there. But when I pulled back the curtain, there was a clump of black hair in the drain. You know, they say most murders are committed by someone the victim knows. Really makes you wonder if one of your friends or family members is just waiting for the right chance. Our next story is called Last Night I Played the Game Among Us. Something Went Horribly Wrong. Written by Blair Daniels. Last night I played Among Us with a bunch of college friends. It's a computer game similar to Mafia. You and the other players are on a spaceship, and everyone is either a crewmate or imposter. The crewmates try to complete tasks they're given, and the imposters try to kill everyone. There are some nuances, but that's the gist of it. It was 5 of us. Me, my roommate Braden, the girls double across the hall, and David in a single above us. We were all in our respective bedrooms alone in a video call, because if we were actually together, we'd see each other's screens and spoil who was the imposter. Besides, it was the responsible thing to do with the spike in cases recently. Should I start the game? On the screen, 5 little bipeds ran across the room, their faces obscured by cartoon glass. I scanned the name floating over each person. Braden, Allie, Jenny, David. Go ahead. The screen flashed. Crewmate. There is one imposter among us. Then the game was off. I made my little character run over to fix some wires. About 30 seconds in, I heard Allie's voice. No! I just got killed! Hey, no talking about the game. I'm sorry. I couldn't help it. Then mute yourself. Aw, come on, give her a break. I frowned. Through the speakers, I could hear the faint echo of my voice as Braden's microphone picked it up. These dorm walls were so thin. It's her first time playing, Braden. Come on. If everyone says when they die, it gives everything away and ruins the fun. Okay, I won't say anything. Words flashed across the screen. Dead body reported. Then someone called an emergency meeting, and we shrunk our games to see the video call. Allie crossed her arms. I'm so mad. I can't believe... Don't tell us who it is, David said, his face pixelated and a Led Zeppelin poster behind him. I heard a few thumps above me as he shuffled his feet. Listen, I saw Jenny just walk into a room and then walk out. That's telltale imposter behavior. Get lost. I say we vote Jenny off then, I said. She glared at me through the screen. I think it was you. It wasn't me. I was fixing wires. We voted. Jenny got voted off. She was the imposter. Then we started another round. I was, again, a crewmate. One imposter was among us. I was doing the card scanner task when I heard Allie's voice again coming through the speaker. No. Get away from me. You're not supposed to talk about the game. Come on, you're ruining it for everyone. No, get away from me. Come on, Allie. Now we know you're not the imposter. Stop it! Then she finally stopped talking. The line went silent. Okay, has anyone found her body yet? Nope, not yet. I finally finished my card scanning task, so I walked my character around the spaceship, looking for the engine room. I got lost down a few hallways, but finally found it. I froze. Allie's character, a bright pink astronaut, was just standing there. Not dead, just standing still in the center of the room, as if she were away from the keyboard. Guys? I found Allie. She isn't dead. Then what was she going on about? Is anyone dead yet? We can't call a meeting unless we find the body first. An unsettling feeling filled me. I walked around her in circles. She didn't move. Allie? You still there? Silence. Jenny, is she AFK? Shouldn't be. I'll go check, though. Shuffling sounds filled the speakers as Jenny got up and left her computer. The rest of us, Braden, David, and I, waited in silence. Then sound burst through the speakers. A scream distorted by static. Allie? Oh my God, Allie, can you hear me? Her voice cracked with fear. A sob, and then their soft echoes from Jenny's microphone in the next room. Jenny, what happened? Call the police! I reached for my phone, but as I did, words flashed across the screen. Dead body reported. And above it, the image of Allie's pink character, dead. I dialed the police with shaking fingers. What's happening? This is sick. Really fucking sick. I listened to the ring, then the 911 operator came on. Someone was attacked in my friend's dorm, West Hall. I stopped. All this time, there'd been that soft echo of my voice, Braden's computer picking me up through the thin wall. Now, it was gone. I stood up, shaking. My hand closed around the cold doorknob. I pulled it up just an inch and stared out into the common room. The door was creaking open. Behind it, Braden, holding a knife in one hand and his laptop in the other. I scrambled back into my room, thrust the window open, and began to climb out, but not before my eyes caught on my own screen. Dead body reported, with the image of my character. If you enjoyed these stories, follow the links below and leave them an upvote. You can also find some of the author's books on the author's Amazon page linked below in the description. Don't forget to leave a like on this video and subscribe to us for more horror stories. After all those, I don't think it's safe to go outside, look out your window, or go to the bathroom. I think the best, safest course would be to stay inside in the dark, alone. But remember, don't fall asleep.